This conference will now be recorded.
It's time to call to order the regular meeting of the McAllister City Council, Tuesday, November 10th. We do have a quorum, and we have Reverend J.T. Carnell from First Church of the Nazarene here to lead us in an invocation and pledge. Yes, please.
Let us pray together. Our Lord and God, pray tonight as our civic leaders have gathered for this meeting. I ask that you would be with them in everything that they do. Father, tonight as they are here to help not just supply, but also recognize the needs of our community and especially the people for which they serve. So we pray tonight, Father, that in all things, give wisdom where it is needed. Where there's division, Father, I pray that you give understanding. Where there is consensus, I pray, Father, that you'll give expedited help to. And again, we just know that you have a plan for all that we do. Just surround us now with your presence and your power, and we give thanks for this in your name. Amen. Amen. And I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Cora, would you call the roll, please?
Councilman Smith,
Here.
Stevens,
Here.
Cox,
Here.
Brown,
Here.
Boatwright,
Here.
Pritchard,
Here.
Mayor.
Here. We're on to citizens' comments on non-agenda items. Residents may address the council regarding an item that is not listed in the agenda. Residents must provide their name and address. Council requests that comments be limited to 5 minutes. I don't have any sign-ups, and I don't see anybody in the lobby, so we will move on to the consent agenda. All matters listed on the consent agenda are considered to be routine by the City Council, will be enacted by one motion. There will not be separate discussion of these items. If discussion is desired, that item will be removed from the consent agenda and will be considered separately. The agenda tonight consists of A, approval of minutes from the October 27th, 2020 regular meeting of McAllister City Council. B, approval of claims for October 21st, 2020 through November 3rd, 2020. C, consider and act upon a memorandum of understanding between the City of McAllister and the Pittsburgh County Commissioners to allow for the continued collaboration and sharing of resources and duties to ensure the safety of the citizens of McAllister and Pittsburgh County during emergency situations. Would anyone like anything removed? In that case, I'd take a motion and a second to approve. Motion, Councilman Cox, second, Councilman Boatwright. Any discussion? Cora, would you call the roll, please?
Councilman Cox,
Yes.
Boatwright,
Yes.
Smith,
Yes.
Stevens,
Yes.
Brown,
Yes.
Pritchard,
Yes.
Mayor.
Yes, and the motion carries. We just had a couple people walk in. We've already done the citizens' comments on non-agenda items, but if you guys were here to do that, I will let you speak. Okay, great. In that case, we'll move on to public hearing. All persons interested in any ordinance listed under scheduled business shall have an opportunity to be heard in accordance with Article 2, Section 212B of the City Charter. Tonight, we have three. The first being an ordinance amending the general zoning ordinance and accompanying map thereto known as General Zoning Ordinance Number 1843 by changing the classification of the zoning district for the westerly 55 feet of the easterly 105 feet of Lot 12 and Block 298, City of McAllister, formerly South McAllister in Pittsburgh County, State of Oklahoma, from R1B Single Family Residential District to R2 Two-Family Duplex District. The second is an ordinance of the City of McAllister, Oklahoma, amending McAllister City Code, Chapter 94, Streets, Sidewalks, and Other Public Places, Sections 94 through -91, obstruction by trees or shrubs, grass on sidewalks, repealing all conflicting ordinances, and providing for severability. The third is an ordinance of the City of McAllister, Oklahoma, amending ordinance number 2687, which established the budget for fiscal year 2020-2021, repealing all conflicting ordinances, providing for a severability clause, and declaring an emergency. Take a motion and a second to open the public hearing.
I'll make it, Mayor.
Motion Vice Mayor Brown, second Councilman Boatright. Any discussion? Corey, would you call the roll, please?
Vice Mayor Brown,
Yes.
Councilman Boatright,
Yes.
Stevens,
Yes.
Cox,
Yes.
Pritchard,
Yes.
Smith,
Yes.
Mayor.
Yes, so we're now in public hearing. Anyone that would like to address us concerning the zoning ordinance, please step forward. Seeing no one. Anyone that would like to address us concerning the ordinance on the obstruction of public places, please step forward. Seeing no one, and if anyone would like to address us on the ordinance concerning the budget, please step forward. Alright, seeing no one, I take a motion in a second to close the public hearing. Motion Vice Mayor Brown, second Councilman Smith. Any discussion? Corey, would you call the roll, please?
Vice Mayor Brown,
Yes.
Councilman Smith,
Yes.
Cox,
Yes.
Boatright,
Yes.
Pritchard,
Yes.
Stevens,
Yes.
Mayor.
Yes, and the motion carries. We're on to agenda item number 1. Consider an act upon authorizing the city manager to accept a grant award from the Oklahoma Tourism and Recreation Department in the amount of $64,000 to rebuild and improve Rotary Park Trail. Mr. Stasiak, are you taking this one?
Stephanie is on the line. Stephanie, would you like me to take this, or are you gonna present it?
I'm happy to take it, sir.
Okay?
Mayor and Council, what you have before you this evening is an agreement with the Oklahoma State Parks Department to help us rebuild the Rotary Park Trail that exists at Rotary Park, expand it into a multi-use trail that is fully ADA accessible, and also prepare a place and begin implementation of an outdoor fitness equipment. It is an 80-20 match, so the grant provides $64,000 on an $80,000 project, with the city pledging $16,000 towards that project. A portion of that is cash, a portion is in kind, and a portion are community donations. I'm happy to answer any questions you have.
Anyone have any questions or comments? I'd take a motion in a second to approve. Motion Councilman Cox, second Councilman Smith. Any discussion? Corey, would you call the roll, please?
Councilman Cox,
Yes.
Smith,
Yes.
Brown,
Yes.
Boatright,
Yes.
Pritchard,
Yes.
Stevens,
Yes.
Mayor.
Yes, and the motion carries. We're on to agenda item number 2, discussion and possible action on the increase of the current cemetery fees. Who's got this one?
Mayor, members of the council, I believe Mr. Basinger is supposed to be on the line. He can fill in the blanks here in a few minutes. This is something that was presented back in March to the council, and it was postponed. We had presented the recommendations to increase our cemetery fees based on information provided to us in conjunction with other city-owned cemeteries in the state of Oklahoma. This was actually presented to the cemetery board on March the 5th, and they unanimously recommended the changes. As you can see, we have a comparison chart in the back that is the colored piece of paper. We have some small increases, $50 increases for closing fees related to the cemetery. We are recommending no changes for the infant grave sites opening and closing. A $25 increase for cremation fee setups, whether it's a setup or with or without a setup, and a $50 increase for Saturdays and holiday charges. remain the same for disinterment for adult baby cremations. $50 increase for reinternment, a $50 increase to items related to the mausoleum. As you can see, these are small increases. Cemetery fee have not been increased since 2010, and staff recommends adopting the new fee schedule for the cemeteries in McAllister.
Mr. Basinger, are you on the line?
Yes, I am, Mayor.
Do you have anything you want to add?
No, just the very bottom section, it shows prices remain the same. We don't do any of those things in that section is why. If anybody had a question on that, we don't perform any of those functions.
So, anyone on the council have any questions or comments? Councilman Cox?
City manager, what's the primary driver? Have we seen expenses increase that is causing us to consider this, or?
Absolutely, Councilman Cox. We have increases in equipment costs, we have increases in fuel, we have increase in labor and benefit costs. Citywide, we have tremendous increases. And like I stated earlier, these fees have not been changed in 10 years. So even if you just looked at the cost of living and equated that to a 3% CPI on an annual basis, you're at over 30% right there, that we've seen things increase over that 10-year period of time with no increase in fees. A very small amount of this goes to the perpetual care fund. That perpetual care fund is for maintenance and equipment of the cemetery, and you can only spend the interest earned off of that account. With interest rates being at 0.2 or 0.4, literally we have no money for equipment and those type of things. We're just seeing a big increase in our costs to open grave sites, close them, all the things that are involved with that process.
Okay.
Any other questions or comments? All right, I take a motion and a second to approve. Motion, Councilman Smith, second Vice Mayor Brown. Any discussion? Clerk, would you call the roll, please?
Councilman Smith,
Yes.
Brown,
Yes.
Boatright,
Yes.
Pritchard,
Yes.
Stevens,
Yes.
Cox,
Yes.
Mayor.
Yes, and the motion carries. We're on to agenda item number 3. Consider and act upon an agreement between the City of McAllister and Meshach and Associates LLC for professional engineering services for a citywide drainage improvements program. Mr. Stasiak?
Mayor, members of the council, tonight we present to you a professional services agreement between the City of McAllister and Meshach Associates. To go back a little bit, I'd like to explain our relationship with Meshach and Associates. For over 10 years, they have taken care of our stormwater reporting for the City of McAllister. I don't know if they can hear me.
Yeah.
Meshach and Associates has handled all of our stormwater reporting and compliance for the City of McAllister for many, many years. A couple of years ago, we engaged them in a stormwater master plan for the entire City of McAllister. That master plan took almost over a year to complete. It had numerous meetings with the public where we got input from the public who came and explained the problems that they were experiencing around the city. Meshach and Associates were able to take all that documentation and put that into their plan and identify remedies on how to take care of those high water areas and those people that were experiencing flooding within our city. We have a long-term relationship with Meshach and Associates. This stormwater plan that they produced for us identified about 25 major locations that we have been working on for several years now to start remedying those. They've worked with the Stormwater Committee Stormwater Committee makes recommendations based on what the engineering firms say. And we're ready to proceed with an agreement with them for professional services and to keep moving the city forward and improving our stormwater for the city of McAllister.
Any,
Mayor, we also have Mr. Fletcher here from Meshach and Associates, if you have any questions for him.
do you have anything you'd like to add, Mr. Fletcher?
Just thank you for the relationship. Just take the time to say thanks for the relationship that you've given us so far. We have, like Mr. Stasiak said, this is in order to prepare the plans for construction projects to fix the number of issues that through the city of McAllister, and we were able to help them identify those. Thanks for the opportunity that you've given us for the last 10 years to be here and to partner with you. It really is something that we're excited to continue, and look forward to implementing the plan that we worked so hard to put together with your help. So,
I know that I've been involved in it for at least 6 of the 10 years, and it's a very good working relationship.
Mayor, if I could add, this relationship, it stays the same. I mean, we have the list of the major projects and the problems within the city. We continue to work with the Stormwater Committee. The Stormwater Committee makes recommendations to the council. We all work together. We bring you projects, you approve those projects, and then we move on, so.
It really helps because I'm on the Stormwater Committee, so we get a hierarchy of not just what needs to be done, but also by cost, so it allows us to work the most efficiently with what we have.
Sure, and we have Mr. Skimbo here on staff, and he is the oversight for all of these projects. It's really a good relationship that we have built.
Does anyone else have any questions or comments? Councilman Smith?
Pete, can you explain the compensation, the way it all works, and how did you come with a $250,000 cap on this thing?
That's just a figure that was put in there. At that time, if we ever hit that cap, we would come back to the council and just review it and see how it's working.
But it's based on the cost of all those expected projects? Is that
No, it's
right?
based on the fees for engineering, construction
Right,
plans.
but I mean, don't you assign a percentage of that to the engineering? Doesn't engineering, do they get a fixed amount?
Yeah, it's on a scale. It's usually in that 8 to 12% of the project. You see the higher percentage on the smaller price projects. You see the lower percentage on the higher price projects. But those cost estimates are one of the first things that are performed by the engineering firm. They'll calculate the amount of pipe, what it costs to put it in the ground, then they come up with a cost estimate for construction, and then they start working on their fees at that point.
So the overall cost of those predicted projects was what, 20 or 30 million? Or is that
I think it
the
was
one we're talking
25
about?
million.
How much?
20 or 25 million was,
Right.
and those were just the major projects.
So you were just taking like 10% of that estimated to come up with that $250,000? or-
Approximately, yes.
And they have to bill each separate project for their work, right?
Yes, sir, they are. They are each identified as separate projects. They come with separate engineering, separate construction costs, separate everything, and that comes to the council for approval.
Thank you.
Councilman Boatright?
On section D 2.2, it's reporting here overhead costs of 183% of the raw labor cost. That is a huge amount of overhead.
What page is that?
Page D2, under
Last page.
number 3, down to right at the top of page D2, the very last page.
Labor cost.
I don't understand 183% of raw labor cost as being an overhead.
Yeah, I see.
Can
Sure.
you explain that to me?
yeah, that's an audited rate that we do with the state of Oklahoma. Of course, you know what the overhead is. Of course, that's our offices and electricity and all the equipment. And that's just the audited rate. That's what it costs us to do business. It's audited by the state or a state-approved firm. is the one that audits our rates every year. That's the same rate that we use for the Department of Transportation on any work that we do for them. It's called a FAR audit. It's for federal, I don't remember what it is, federal something regulations. So it's a pretty standard rate. Most people, when you start looking at their billing rates, it's about a factor of 3, give or take. So we have 183%, and then you add that original $1 back in, so you get to 2.83 is our multiplier.
Okay.
But it is an audited rate through federal regulations. So
Well, and the other question, D2 and D3 and D4,
Mm-hmm.
overhead cost of 10%, and then compensation includes an additional 5%. We're up at 198%.
right, yeah, the 10% is the profit. So in order to cover our overhead rates, we have 183%. Then we add 10% on top for profit, and then the 5% that you see for subconsultants and subcontractors. Since we don't say it's going to cost me X amount of dollars to be the middleman essentially for subcontractors, which are not going to have a whole lot on
Okay.
these particular projects, instead of trying to assign an hour to it or an amount of money, we mark up theirs, that 5%, to account for basically being the middleman between you and any subcontractors that we might have. And that's what that 5% is for.
So,
Any other questions or comments? Take a motion and a second to approve. Motion, Councilman Smith, second Vice Mayor Brown. Any discussion? Corey, would you call the roll, please?
Councilman Smith,
Yes.
Brown,
Yes.
Pritchard,
Yes.
Stevens,
No.
Cox,
Yes.
Boatright,
no,
Mayor.
Yes, and the motion carries. We're on to agenda item number 4, consider and act upon an ordinance amending the general zoning ordinance and accompanying map thereto, known as general zoning ordinance number 1843, by changing the classification of the zoning districts for the westerly 55 feet of the easterly 105 feet of Lot 12 and Block 298, City of McAllister, formerly South McAllister, in Pittsburgh County, State of Oklahoma, from R1B Single Family Residential to R2 Two Family Duplex District. Ms. Clifton.
Good evening, council. This is an application to rezone 353 East Washington from R1B to R2. And the Planning Commission met on October 20th, 2020 and voted unanimously, that was 10-0, to recommend the applicant's rezoning request. And staff just recommends that application be approved.
Any questions, comments?
I just wanted to ask, is this house the second west of Fifth Street? Is that
Yes,
what that is?
Yes.
What's this stuff down here in the street?
I think that's part of the right-of-way, like the sidewalk, and then
In
the
the
right-of-way.
This
Well,
little deal?
it may be in the platted street. Yeah.
I don't understand. If this is a street here, Jimmy, what's that little deal going into the street?
That's the sidewalk right there, is right there on the property line, and then there's that little right-of-way right there that it looks like it's
So
in the
this isn't
platted
the street,
Washington.
This is the street.
It is the street. It appears to be in the platted street.
Thank you.
Welcome.
I don't know what that means.
Any other questions or comments?
Mayor, I have a question.
Go ahead.
It seemed to me from reading through this file and the letter in here that they're using this as a fourplex. And I'm curious, if they're using it as a fourplex, why are we rezoning it to a duplex?
Ms. Clifton?
It has been used as a fourplex. I believe Mr. Lynch said at the meeting that there's only 2 occupying it. They want to use it as a duplex. They're going to use the other additional area as storage. The reason why that they could not rezone to a fourplex is because they didn't have the adequate minimum lot size, which for a duplex you would need 8,000. This lot is 9,020 feet.
Would it-
And then for each additional unit, it's 2,000 additional square feet on top of that, the way our zoning ordinance is.
Would it not be grandfathered in?
It's a non-conforming use, but as far as like trying to bring it into compliance, they had the adequate area to be able to do a duplex. And he wishes to use it as a duplex as well, so
Did you say he wishes to use it as a duplex?
yes, sir.
So is that, I guess that's changed since the letter he sent in April?
Perhaps, yes.
Well, isn't he a new owner and it had been run as a fourplex, even though it's only zoned for single family? And now he's wanting to get straight with the law and zone it for a duplex and actually make it a duplex?
That's what he's wanting to do, is to make it into a duplex. And I believe that's what he said at the meeting, is that it was being occupied by two right now. So I don't think that his plans are to use it as a quad, so.
Well, if we approve this, he won't be able to use it as a quad, right? He'll be
Yeah.
locked into a duplex, so. Any other questions? Take a motion to,
And I
Councilman
noticed
Smith?
that list of people you sent notices to, did any come back with a problem?
We did not receive any, comments, no.
Thanks.
okay, I take a motion in a second to approve. Motion Councilman Smith, second Councilman Boatright. Any further discussion? Corey, would you call the roll, please?
Councilman Smith,
Yes?
Boatright,
Yes.
Stevens,
Yes.
Cox,
Yes.
Brown,
Yes.
Pritchard,
No.
Mayor.
Yes, and the motion carries. And I'm glad somebody's fixing this building up, because years ago, this was a very nice building. When you go inside, all of the old wood and stuff that's in there, it was beautiful. Going back 30 years when I worked for a plumber, we did the work in that building. So. All right, we will move on to agenda item number 5. Consider an ordinance of the City of McAllister, Oklahoma, amending City Code Chapter 94, Streets, Sidewalks, and Other Public Places, Section 94-91, obstruction of trees or shrubs, grass on sidewalks, repealing all conflicting ordinances and providing for a severability. Ms. Clifton again.
This is just a first reading of this ordinance to kind of go over some of the changes that we would like to see. And as you can tell from the agenda report and the ordinance, it specifies, like, to remove the encroachments from sidewalks, but it doesn't clearly state anything for streets. And so we would just like to update that ordinance to be able, to clearly state that the trees have to be so many feet from the roadway, and to be able to work with property owners and give them a clear message of what it needs to be. We routinely receive complaints. We also, staff works closely with the school each year to remove a lot of those tree obstructions from the street so that their buses can pass, through. But we're open to any recommendations on this. This is just basically a first reading to allow everybody to kind of see it, review it, and then we'll bring it back at the next one.
The only question I had on it was, if the tree is in our right of way, the homeowner wants to just cut the entire tree down, if they can do that, and I was told that is correct, that they would be able to.
They can remove the tree. This is basically to help address those issues, because we do have limited staff to be able to go and trim all the trees across the city of McAllister. We would like to see a lot of the property owners to be able to, care for those trees. There are times that they're, a safety issue or a line of sight issue or something like that. Our park staff do go out and trim those trees to make sure that those obstructions are removed, for safety reasons.
And If this were to pass, though, we would not be able to do that anymore, I don't believe.
No, I think that we could still do that. It's just this would give us the opportunity to work with property owners more often, you know, to be able to tell them an exact, you know, message of, you know, we'd like to see the trees trimmed to, you know, this X amount, you know. Sidewalks, you know, it's clearly identified. We work with them often as well. You know, in the fall when kids start walking to school and there's a lot of, you know, obstructions in the sidewalks, this would be similar to that.
Yeah. Mr. Irvin, can you clarify that? Because if we make us, like, for instance, we have the sidewalks as the responsibility of the homeowner, so the city, can the city go and fix a sidewalk?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, the city can. Construction and maintenance are different issues, but just because we make something the responsibility of the homeowner doesn't mean that the city cannot take action anytime the health, welfare, or safety of the citizenry served.
Okay. I was just wondering if we were getting into the city getting in a position where they might do it here and not do it there. Councilman Boatright?
We're not near any equal protection issues or anything like that.
Okay.
It's kind of my understanding from being here in the past that the city used to take care of the trees that overhang over the street.
Yeah.
And took care of all that. Now if the tree is on a private individual's borderline, property line, and the limbs and stuff come over onto the street, I understand that those tree limbs that come over the street become the property of the city, that we could cut those down at any point in time. So now we're gonna go back and tell the property owners that they're gonna have to cut that tree? Or they're gonna have to cut those limbs back off of the street?
That's the way I understand it. Is that correct?
That's correct.
If I could, Mayor, this is very similar to what we went through for the last 5 years or so with our alleyways. The city used to go through and clean all the alleyways, mainly because we used to have the trash service and we used the alleys for our trash service. Once we got away from that, the city was no longer able, just from time constraints, to go and clean those alleys, and those alleyways became the responsibility of the homeowners up to the center part of the alley, and we don't clean alleyways anymore either. So this is giving this back to the homeowners.
Any other questions or comments? Councilman Cox?
How are we gonna enforce it?
The same way we do with grass and the, you know, shrubs growing into the sidewalks, we send them a notice and ask them to trim them back.
And when they don't?
I suppose we can go out for bid and, you know, or the Parks Department can continue to assist with trimming those back as well.
Yes, we will have to, based on public safety, those type of issues.
I think that's exactly where the mayor was going is, all right, you trim it for, you know, citizen A, and then you don't for citizen B. Now the city's playing favorites. How are we gonna get around that?
Maybe we need to look at some type of fining mechanism. Do some warnings like we do with the grass, and then go into is there a possibility that we could lien the homeowner's property for the cost to trim the branches?
We could abate this in a similar way, yes.
But just to tie back in again, let's use an example of tall grass on two neighboring houses. Okay, and we go out and mow one, and then we start finding the other one for not mowing. That seems like we're being put in making a bad decision there.
Well, we're not gonna fine somebody for not mowing, we're gonna abate, we're gonna go out and mow it and charge them the cost of the administrative fee along with the cost to mow that property.
Okay, so
They'll be treated equal.
Mr. Mayor, this is Joe Urban.
Okay.
Yeah, on those kind of things, the city always has to prioritize because it has limited financial, assets. It always has to prioritize services, and so this is more of a way to ensure that there is a provision for the maintenance of all those public ways, and so we don't approach an equal protection or equal application of the law issue because we trim some trees and we aren't able to trim other trees. And so this is a mechanism to make sure that all the public ways are maintained. But on your mowing analogy, when we mow, we charge the property owner for that. And so whether we cite someone for not mowing or whether we mow it for them and charge them for that, they're still bearing that cost and that responsibility.
Yeah, so then realistically, we would need to have that as part of this program, that if we go out and we trim them, that we charge that property owner. If we're going to put another property owner in the position of liability, either through a lien or a fine, then we can't go and cut someone else's for free.
I would agree with that. The other thing is that before we mow someone's property, they receive notice, and so the city would need a mechanism for noticing before the city would go out and maintain. But none of this prohibits the city from maintaining if they determine that trimming something would serve the public interest or the health, welfare, and safety of the public.
Councilor Smith?
The last sentence on that first paragraph says, any unlawful obstruction of any sidewalk, blah, 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 is hereby declared to be a public nuisance subject to abatement under provisions of chapter 82. What does chapter 82 cover?
That would be the lot cleaning, that we use when
For the
we
mowing
abate for
and stuff.
mowing and, yeah.
The one thing that I would want cleared up would be that if we trim them, we charge them what market rate would be, or else we don't trim them and make sure that everybody is treated the same that way. But my concern is just that everybody gets treated the same. Yeah,
What are we
Councilor
gonna do to the people that's living on fixed income? How are we gonna collect that money if we charge those people? Are we doing it the way we used to do abatement for houses? They put a lien on their property? Or how are we gonna handle that when somebody cannot pay? You know, you're sitting there drawing $800 to $1,200 a month and trying to live on it. In today's society, you can't do that.
No.
How are we gonna collect? In other words, what I'm saying is, if the city goes over there, cuts the limbs and stuff back and charges $600 for the services, then how are we gonna recover our $600? And then are we gonna say that tree is, we gonna determine whether that tree is on city property or private property before we ever do anything? How are we gonna determine who's gonna get it and who don't, you know?
That's exactly the problem, is determining how it would work, because if you're, like I said, if you're two houses next door to each other, one is on Social Security only and the other person makes $75,000 a year, you still gotta treat them equally.
Yeah, but it's according to where the tree is. If it's on city property, are we gonna cut it like we used to or have in the past?
Well, that's kind of what we're determining tonight. That's why this is a reading only. We won't be voting on this tonight, but this is to get our input back to the codes department.
Okay.
So I would suggest tomorrow or sometime contacting Ms. Clifton.
Okay.
With those, because like I said, it'll all come back to us to vote on at some point in time. So we need to, any bumps that we see, we need to flatten them out now before it comes back for a vote.
And our code enforcement staff, Tabitha Howe, would be happy to visit with you on how she approaches a lot of these issues. I mean, because we do see that, you know, we try to give everybody the opportunity to do it themselves, and we provide them, you know, contact lists and, you know, resources to be able to take care of this property, that, you know, on their own before we abate. And so she does pretty good working with those people.
So it's not gonna be give them a letter and give them 15 days or something to get it down. We're gonna be able to work with the property owner, is that what we're saying?
We'll do our best to work with them, yes. We will give them a notice, though, however, to let them know that, you know, we would like to see them to trim it. But we'll come up with those mechanisms, you know, maybe as far as like whether it be city staff that trims it and we come up with the cost that it takes to send somebody out there to do it, or whether we bid it out for contract like we do with our mowing services and cleanup services. But this is, you know, basically an initial step to be able to say that if the tree is overhanging a public way, X amount of feet, it needs to be trimmed. I mean, you can see in the pictures in the packet that there's places all over the city of McAllister where there's trees that are blocking streets that, I mean, they're encroaching in the streets. You gotta drive around them, you know, or there's people that, you know, either it be buses or campers or trailers or whatever, that they're, you know, they're so low that they can't pass through them.
I
And
understand that, yeah.
this just, you know, it's something that we need to be able to clearly state that if those trees are in the roadway, this amount, they need to be trimmed. And right now, we don't have that. We have that for sidewalks, but not for streets.
Any other questions or comments?
Mr. Mayor,
Yes.
this
Councilman,
is Councilman Stevens.
go ahead.
Just to put in my 2 cents, I understand if we have things growing into roadways in the sense of shrubs or things like that, because I know I've called the city manager before or forwarded along things to codes or city manager about this kind of stuff. I have a lot of concerns about just going on people's properties or sending them a letter and trimming trees, because when you get into that kind of scenario, it becomes a lot different than cutting grass. Because typically when someone's not cutting the grass, it's a vacant property, or not there very often, or they are and they aren't. Or you get into a situation where you're dealing with somebody that's living there, but maybe it's not the property owner at times too. I am not opposed to some form of this ordinance being where you're trimming shrubs out of roadways and blind spots. I have a lot of issue, I think, with trimming trees over roads and things like that, simply because I go to other places in other communities. This isn't that big of a deal, and if it's high up and it's out of the line of sight. So that's my 2 cents for it. Not necessarily opposed to what we're talking about here, but I'd like to see it in the sense of it continues to develop into something that maybe we're not hacking down people's trees and cutting off tree limbs everywhere, and really kind of cleaning up line of sight.
I think a good idea on this would be if you could send out an electronic copy to each councilman for review. Were you planning on bringing this up at the next council meeting?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so maybe we do a second reading at the next council meeting with the after getting the input from the council members, and then plan to vote on it on the first meeting in December. Does that sound reasonable to everyone?
That's fine.
If there's no other comments or questions? Thank you.
Thank you.
We are on to agenda item number 6, consider an act upon authorizing the mayor to sign a contractor's final pay number 2 and certificate of substantial completion for the contract with Bolding Construction LLC for the 24-inch sewer main replacement Peachtree Place, and accept the project is completed.
Mayor, council, it's a pleasure to be here tonight. This was the 24-inch sewer main that was identified as being deficient over by the end of Park Avenue and platted Peachtree Street, or Peachtree Place. There's actually not a street there, it's just platted that way. The sewer line was successfully completed and replaced, and this is, the agenda item here is to accept the project as complete, and it starts the 2-year warranty period.
You know that I believe it's Keller, isn't it? That's right there between the 11th Street and then say Apple Blossom, or, you know, I think it's Keller. But, there's a house on the corner of Green Meadows, and I believe it's Keller,
Yes,
that gets flooded
yes.
every time it rains. Will this do anything to alleviate that?
This actually is on a different path.
Is it?
We're actually in the design to fix that particular problem.
Okay,
The city manager has authorized us to design the improvements over in Connolly, which would address the house you're talking about.
great. Councilman Boatright?
At the end of Park Street, I know that this was supposed to relieve that sewer problem that's been going on there, and it hasn't done it.
What we
This
just,
last rain we had, I went down there and there was a place about as big as from you to me and to the mayor, and it's out on the ground again, so
Okay.
I'm not real happy that it's not taken care of, but we've gotta do something.
it needs to be continued, more replacement down there. We did find additional sewer clay tile pipe that was collapsing, that, just didn't have the budget for it. You could continue to chase it and chase it and chase it.
Sure.
And so, identifying a larger scope of that is something that we've been discussing with Pete on the planning side of what we similarly did to your water system, how we evaluated everything, came up with a game plan and a master game plan. Kind of next on the radar in the next near future is going to be a bigger planning document to help, there's not a magic place we can just pick and it eliminated it. That particular area is a widespread area that when we found that collapse, we thought we found our smoking gun. We got it replaced, but we still have a lot of inflow and infiltration. I know another manholes in that area that gets inundated when it rains and it gets a lot of sewer in. And so we've identified some of the hot spots, but systematically there's more to it.
Okay.
So we've made it better, we just haven't made it good.
We've made it better, we're not fixed yet.
Great. Any other questions or comments? I take a motion and a second to approve. Motion, Councilman Smith, second, Vice Mayor Brown. Any discussion? Corey, would you call the roll, please?
Councilman Smith,
Yes.
Brown,
Yes.
Boatright,
Yes.
Pritchard,
Yes.
Stevens,
Yes.
Cox,
Yes.
Mayor.
Yes, and the motion carries. We're on to agenda item number 7. Consider an act upon authorizing the mayor to sign the contractor's final pay number 2 and certificate of substantial completion for the contract with WWJB Contracting for the 102 Saunier Way Canal Bank stabilization and accept the project is completed. Mr. Vaughn.
This is another successful project with the stormwater funding that did a lot of bank stabilization, though, that the banks had eroded out and were lost like 30 to 40 feet. We're able to get it back into the defined right of way. The project, they fought through the spring, fought through the weather. They did a really good job working through it. The end product we were happy with. We walked through everything. They addressed all the deficiencies. And we're coming to you with the recommendation to accept the project as complete and start the 2-year warranty period on it.
Any questions or comments? Take a motion and a second to approve. Motion, Councilman Smith, second, Councilman Boatright. Any discussion? Corey, would you call the roll, please?
Councilman Smith,
Yes.
Boatright,
Yes.
Stevens,
Yes.
Cox,
Yes.
Brown,
Yes.
Pritchard,
Yes.
Mayor.
Yes, and the motion carries. Thank you, Mr. Vaughn. All right, we're on to agenda item number 8. Consider an act upon an ordinance amending ordinance number 2687, which established a budget for fiscal year 2020-2021, reviewing all conflicting ordinances, providing for a severability clause, and declaring an emergency. Ms. Swift.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Tonight I bring you our 2 budget amendments. Exhibit number 1 is for our general fund. We're appropriating funds. It's kind of a net, netting each other on our the expense here, but we're appropriating funds for patrol and a fire recruit. We're asking for approval to reinstate our discretionary 2% defined contribution that we discontinued back in fiscal year 19 and 20, for our non-uniform, employees. And then, we also, had temporary labor for our cemetery and parks for several weeks that, we are, appropriating those funds to cover those costs. Let's see here, on the exhibit number 2, it's for MPWA. Again, the discretionary 2% defined contribution that we discontinued, asking for approval to reinstate that for our non-uniform employees. On this one, we also have a GIC position in our engineering department, returning staff and the refuse collection, which is our recycling center, wastewater and utility billing that we hadn't appropriated those funds as of yet. So
Does the returning staff at the recycling, does that mean that that Kai Boys is gonna start back again yet?
No.
They are not, Mayor. They won't be back until there is a vaccine and they can safely work. This is for the city employee.
Yes.
The council approved last year as a full-time regular employee at the
Oh, okay, so yeah, so we're
He's
not,
been-
we're not adding anybody to the guy we've already got.
Just the guy that we
Correct.
already have.
Yeah, okay.
we're just allocating those funds to that particular department to cover his payroll expenses.
Right. Very first thing, though, I want to thank you for increasing the font size. I can actually read these now.
Good, good.
But,
Any questions?
Any questions or comments?
Mayor, I have a question. Councilman Pritchard.
Go ahead.
So when I'm looking at Exhibit A1, for instance, under payroll or patrol full-time payroll, why is there a balance in that amount or that account before the amendment?
That's my error. I didn't, that's the same way with the fire as well. I didn't, carry that over from the system. I apologize. I should have there.
But I mean, but there is a balance.
Oh, yes.
This is not a separate account than the full-time
No, not at all. This is,
patrol.
no, not at all. That's the same with fire. That's my error in, not carrying that or including that, prior
Okay.
balance.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions or comments? All right, I take a motion in a second to approve. Motion Vice Mayor Brown, second Councilman Boatright. Any discussion? Cora, would you call the roll, please?
Vice Mayor Brown,
Yes.
Councilman Boatright,
Yes.
Stevens,
Yes.
Cox,
Yes.
Pritchard,
Yes.
Smith,
Yes.
Mayor.
Yes, and this one carries an emergency with it, so I need a motion and a second on the emergency clause. Motion Vice Mayor Brown. I will second it. Any further discussion? Cora, would you call the roll, please?
Vice Mayor Brown,
Yes.
Councilman Cox,
Yes.
Boatright,
Yes.
Pritchard,
Yes.
Smith,
Yes.
Stevens,
Yes.
Mayor.
Yes, and the motion carries. Thank you. We're on to agenda item number 9, consider and act upon changing location of the City of McAllister, City Council regularly scheduled meetings for the remainder of 2020 from the council chambers at City Hall, 28 East Washington Avenue, McAllister, Oklahoma, 74501, to the Conference Center, Room 215, in the Clark Bass Building at Eastern Oklahoma State College, 1802 East College Avenue, McAllister, Oklahoma. Do you want to take that, or do you want me
Mayor,
to take
members of
it?
the council, we are anticipating that the legislature will not extend the ability for these council meetings to be held with people virtually, council members virtually. We do not have the ability to really socially distance and be able to have the public in this building. So by moving this to the Clark Bass Building over at EOSC, it will allow the councilman the ability to social distance from each other, and also allow us plenty of room for the general public to social distance inside that auditorium. So we have been in contact with EOSC. They are more than happy to accommodate our needs, and we're recommending that we move all council meetings going forward to the Clark Bass Building at EOSC.
And we will also still have the ability to go YouTube live.
Yes, that is correct.
We will be able to stream it live on the internet. We will not be able to air it on cable.
But we will be able to record it and show it on cable. No? Okay. Yeah, but it would still be, it'll be available live on YouTube, on our website, and also, it'll also be archived on our website, right? So if somebody wants to watch it. So. Okay. Are there any questions or comments?
Mayor.
Yeah, Vice Mayor Brown?
Oh, this is just gonna be temporary, Mayor, or
Yes.
Mr. Manager, and then, okay, starting in January,
Well, depending on, I guess it'll be depending on what the situation is.
Okay.
We'll reevaluate it.
Yeah.
okay.
The way it is currently, the telecommunication open meeting part expires on November 15th. So and this is once again, me not being an attorney, but my understanding of it is because it was done by the legislature would have to come in and do it, and the legislature's not in session. So I don't know that the governor could do it by executive order. We have, at our last council meeting, we sent a letter requesting that to happen. I know that the Tulsa City Council has as well. I don't know if any others have. To my knowledge, we haven't gotten any response, and I don't anticipate that we will get one. So this is just making it so that we can all, since we all will have to be in person at a meeting, we'll all be able to do it safely, and it'll also allow the public we'll be able to have more public interaction if they choose to attend, because we won't have some out in the lobby and some in here. So it should be a better setup for everyone involved until this COVID gets better. So, are there any other questions or comments? And I take a motion in a second to, motion Councilman Cox, second Councilman Boatright. Any further discussion? Corge, call the roll, please.
Councilman Cox,
Yes.
Boatright,
Yes.
Brown,
Yes.
Pritchard,
Yes.
Smith,
Yes.
Stevens,
Yes.
Mayor.
Yes, and the motion carries. We are now on to new business. Any matter not known or which could not have been reasonably foreseen prior to the time of posting the agenda in accordance with section 311.9, Title 25 Oklahoma State statutes. Mr. Stazak, do we have any new business?
We do not, Mayor.
Okay, then we will move to city manager report.
Mayor, I just have an announcement to make tonight. On Thursday night, we're going to be shutting down the Buffalo Tower. This is going to happen at 9 o'clock in the evening. We're going to be replacing a 16-inch valve and a 12-inch valve right there at Adams and 3rd Street. The reason for this is we have some other valves down at 3rd and Choctaw that are also in need of replacement. So we've got to get these valves done. If you're up after 9 o'clock at night, you might notice a decrease in your pressure. You should not run out of water, but you should notice a decrease in pressure. This shutdown is scheduled until sunrise the next morning to get both these valves in. They are estimating that they'll have it completed by sunrise, and we'll be back filling that tank. So this is an all-night project. The contractor is going to get this done, and it'll be better for the system down on 3rd and Choctaw when we go down there to replace some problems down there.
Can we try contacting the radio station and see if they'll do PSAs on this?
We can.
Because no matter how much we try to do it, anytime we do something like this, it's always somebody, well, I didn't know. So.
Well, the only thing that anybody should experience is maybe a decrease in their water pressure.
Yeah.
That's the only thing that should happen here, and it's going to happen after 9 o'clock at night.
Yeah.
So, and it's all dependent on how much water's used from the time that we shut the tower down, which is, there's an awful lot of water in that tower. I'm going to be surprised if somebody's up at 3 o'clock in the morning and notices a little bit of a pressure change.
Yeah,
That's why we're doing it at night.
The only concern is our aging infrastructure. When you fix something here, something breaks there. And, don't want people to get up in the morning getting ready to go to work and discover that something unforeseen happened and they didn't have any water.
I'm going with the glass half full. That's all I have, Mayor.
All right, thanks. We're on to remarks and inquiries by the council. Councilman Smith, Councilman Stevens.
I'm good, Mayor. Thank you.
And Councilman Cox. Councilman Brown.
I want to, of course, I think that the McAllister football team, that they're going right on up the ladder, and I want to give them all the encouragement, and I hope the town, which I think they will, get behind these boys, because they're really working hard under the conditions that we're under. So, go Buffs.
They got a bye. The team they were going to play pulled out because, Councilman Boatright?
Yes, I have a couple questions. The Wyandotte sidewalk, been by there several times. I have seen no inspectors on that job. Do we have any inspections that goes over and inspect them jobs?
Absolutely. The engineering firm is taking care of that, and they're watching it very closely.
It's extremely poor condition. I would ask that this project be shut down till we find somebody that can inspect it and tell them what's wrong, because they're not taking care of this. And not only myself, there's other councilmen that have already stopped by there and looked at the project. So I'm not real happy with it, and I don't like the project with all the humps and the bumps and the,
Councilman, I think one of the problems that you're running into when you talk about the humps and the bumps, because of ADA requirements, every 30 feet you have to have a flat landing. So the only other alternative is to crisscross that sidewalk all the way up the hill. So every 30 feet past a 5% grade has to have a flat landing for ADA requirements. So when we start talking about design and those type of things, I wish you would come and visit with us. I can get the engineers involved, and we can answer these type of questions and clear up anything that is of concern to you.
I don't have anything else.
Okay. Councilman Pritchard.
All right. Yeah, I just have one thing. So I noticed some of the new street overlays that have been done in town. They're pretty thick, maybe 3 to 6 inches, and it's sort of difficult to get into people's driveway from some of the streets. I guess what I'm asking is, are the streets that have been overlaid, are they, in their final condition, or is there a plan to sort of deal with the difference between driveways and the new street level?
Councilman, this city manager, we have individuals contacting us currently, and we are out resolving those issues. So if you have somebody that contacts you that has an issue with their driveway, please let us know immediately, and we are taking care of those situations right away so that people can access their driveways.
I'll send you an email then.
That'd be great. We have already addressed some issues on Osage, and if you know of anything else, please let us know.
Okay, thank you.
Was that all, Councilman Pritchard?
I've got one on.
Yes, that's all.
I've got one on West Park.
All right, we're on the mayor's comments and committee appointments. The only thing I want to say is Oklahoma is seeing a huge increase in COVID-19 cases. We're running out or are already out of ICU beds in many of the hospitals. Keep wearing the masks. Encourage everyone to wear a mask. Can't say it enough. I watched a I watched a show last night that had four doctors on it, and they their documentation is that entity or cities or places that have a mask requirement have 20% fewer cases than the places that don't have it. So, you know, that's 1 out of 5. If we can keep 1 out of 5 people from getting sick, we're doing good by having this. So please continue to wear them. Encourage everybody that you know to wear them. It's going to get worse before it gets better. I can tell you that for sure. So, with that, we will recess the council meeting, and I would take a motion to convene as McAllister Airport Authority. Motion to include approval of minutes from October 27th, 2020. Confirm action taken on City Council Agenda Item B, 8, 9, and to adjourn. Motion, Councilman Smith, second Councilman Cox. Any discussion? Cora, would you call the roll, please?
Councilman Smith,
Yes.
Cox,
Yes.
Brown,
Yes.
Boatright,
Yes.
Pritchard,
Yes.
Stevens,
Yes.
Mayor.
Yes, and the motion carries. I now take a motion to convene as McAllister Public Works Authority. Motion to include approval of minutes from the October 27th, 2020 regular meeting of McAllister Public Works Authority. Confirm action taken on City Council Agenda Item B, 3, 6, 7, 8, 9, and to adjourn.
I'll make a motion.
Motion Vice Mayor Brown, second Councilman Cox. Any discussion? Cora, would you call the roll, please?
Vice Mayor Brown,
Yes.
Councilman Cox,
Yes.
Smith,
Yes.
Stevens,
Yes.
Boatright,
Yes.
Pritchard,
Yes.
Mayor.
Yes, and the motion carries. I now take a motion to adjourn. Motion, Councilman Cox, second Councilman Vice Mayor Brown. Any discussion? Cora, would you call the roll, please?
Councilman Cox,
Yes.
Brown,
Yes.
Boatright,
Yes.
Pritchard,
Yes.
Smith,
Yes.
Stevens,
Yes.
Mayor.
Yes, and we're adjourned. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.